Hi everyone. So this is the first time we're going to be doing the Seeds Corner, and we're going to be featuring Christine Pardo. Christine, thank you for being here today. So Christine is a PhD candidate at the University of Miami, and so tell us about how you became involved with Seeds.
Yeah, that's actually a great story. So when I did my undergraduate at Florida International University, I started a SEEDS chapter at our university. I'm not sure how I heard about SEEDS. I might have Googled undergraduate ecology clubs, and SEEDS came up somehow. And so I just remember thinking, well, we should have an ecology club on our campus. So I helped start the first one, kind of not knowing what I was doing at the time, but I am definitely proud to say that it's still a chapter today, even though I'm not really involved with them anymore because they're at FIU and I'm now at UM, which is across the Miami city landscape. But yeah, that's how I got involved. It just was I wanted to start an ecology club with some of my friends, and thankfully there was enough interest to get one started. And so yeah, that's kind of it. Kind of just jumped. I just jumped right into it. It was fun starting it. Kind of crazy because I didn't know what we were doing at the time,
Definitely.
but the fact that it's still there now, it's still a chapter for me is really important. It shows that there's still continued interest, especially in at FIU, which is a minority serving institution. So it's really important for me.
Of course. And if it actually, so me and Christine went to undergrad together, and I
Yeah.
did not know anything about Seeds. And if it wasn't for Glades Club, the Seeds chapter at FIU, I wouldn't have known about Seeds. So thank you, Christine. Um, so how could you tell us how your involvement with Seed was important to your career or personal development?
Definitely. So I It definitely helped me to sort of conceptualize the idea that I could be a scientist for a living, or at least, devote a large portion of my life to becoming an ecologist, which I didn't know prior to becoming involved with seeds and becoming involved in research at the university, that that was even an option for someone like me, because I did not come from a scientific background. I had a degree in biology. I was studying biology, but like my parents are teachers. And everyone in my family works in public service, like they're police officers or firefighters. So being a scientist seemed kind of far fetched, I guess. And then when I heard about seeds, I learned about seeds at the same time that I had my first sort of real research experience. And by my first research experience, I lived in the Andes Amazon, mountains of Peru. It was a really intense experience. So
Wow.
I kind of at all at once like discovered like I could be a scientist. This is who scientists are. They're graduate students and they become professors. And of course there are different avenues within science and ecology, but what seeds helped me at least think about for a career was that this was an attainable an attainable research oriented career that I didn't know
Mhm.
was even existed. If and I'm not the only one that I think feels this. A lot of people kind of realize like later in life, like, oh, I could do this for a living. I could study something important to me. And so that's what seeds did for my career. And I would say like personally and professionally, starting a club helped me realize what skills I had to lead and how to be a good like role model. I guess I wanted to be kind of like the sentinel, like, let's start this, let's get this going. So it definitely helped me to kind of mature. I think starting a club and making friends and becoming a part of seeds helped me to kind of see who I could be in this community. And that's kind of what I learned. And so ever since starting the chapter and moving forward, I've just kind of remember that fondly as like, oh, I did something, I made a difference for not just myself but for other people.
Definitely, that's amazing. I mean, the leadership skills and also creating your own community, that's so important as minorities in science.
Exactly.
Um, what SEEDS activities did you participate on?
Yeah, well, we went on a trip together, right? We went to the Trout Lake Research Station. I have to like dig back. That was quite a few years ago. We went to
Yeah.
Trout Lake for it was a SEEDS field trip. So we got to go to another, I think that's a long-term ecological research project. So I got to learn, I remember we got to learn like about different research going on in a place I'd never been to. I'd never been to Wisconsin. It was a lot of fun. I think that might have been the only trip I've ever been on. I know I did go to ESA one year and I did go to the SEEDS like meeting or something. I did not go to ESA the year that we were awarded Chapter of the Year. I know you did. You accepted the award that year, which was super cool. But yeah, I think that might have been the only SEEDS like in-person event I attended. I did recently attend the virtual. We had like a conversation about race
Mhm.
amongst SEEDS members, and so I attended that because I was really curious to see, how we were talking about race and race issues in this country, and also kind of to like reconnect since now everything is so virtual. I thought, oh, I'd love a chance to like see who's in SEEDS. And what's funny is that people we went on that trip with are still like in SEEDS, it's like,
Right.
yeah, it's like super cool. Like, oh yeah, we're all still doing the same thing. Like we haven't,
Yeah.
you
It's
know,
great to see what everybody's been up to.
yeah,
So,
exactly.
in that, it was a perfect segue. So, what are you up to now? Can you tell us a little bit about your research and your career goals?
Sure, let's see. What am I up to now? Well, normally I would be someplace like what's around me right now. This is a picture of one of my field sites in southern Costa Rica. So the research I'm doing is focused on invasive species biology or invasion biology. And I'm studying an invasive ornamental plant, this plant that's around me, and how it's growing in rainforest patches in southern Costa Rica. The project sort of fell in my lap. I was in Costa Rica for a field course with the Organization for Tropical Studies, and I visited the Las Cruces Biological Field Station. And when I was there, I asked them, "Do you have any invasive species issues? Like, I'm into that. I want to know, like, can species invade rainforests?" And they said, well, actually, yeah, we have this one plant that we are concerned with, and that we've done some, kind of observations, but we really don't know a whole lot, and we'd like to know more, especially in places like behind me that are, being taken over, it seems, I would say fairly obvious that that it's taking over, especially disturbed rainforests, which is what we know we know that disturbed areas are more invaded by invasive and introduced plants than non-disturbed areas. So that's my research. Is I'm devoting how many chapters? 4 chapters basically of my dissertation to understanding the ecological and also the socio-ecological kind of system of this plant, everything from the traits that this plant has, what traits allow it to invade, if those traits are different from other coexisting plants in the area and even other introduced plants. I'm trying to understand if it has any impacts or any change, if it's making any change to the rainforest, and we did that and are doing that by removing it very carefully from the rainforest. I'm also interviewing people. That's where I get a little more interdisciplinary. I'm interviewing stakeholders in the community and throughout the country, really, about this issue of invasive plants, and if any, and specifically the local knowledge about this species, because there's a lot of I say it's surrounded by a lot of fun myths and interesting ideas about, some say this plant's native here, some people, or to Costa Rica, and some people know it's invasive, but they use it for, decorating churches, and they use the water in the flower. I don't know if you can see, these weird little inflorescences actually store water, and so some people say they use the water for insect repellent, and
Oh,
it's really interesting. It's important to understand the social side of invasive species, because humans are the most efficient disperser of this
mhm.
plant. Somebody sees this plant in the rainforest and they go, I want that. They take it. They put it in their house, and it starts to spread. So it's really important to understand that aspect as well. So that was what I'm doing right now, and my career goals. That was the next question. I was like, what was the question after that? Yeah, in my immediate and hopeful career goals is I really would like to keep pursuing this as a postdoc project. Like I'd really like to um, get a postdoc and continue working in this community with this plant and others, kind of more, I would say, not the same projects, but definitely there are other things that could be done with this system, I think, that are really interesting for understanding and improving invasion science, because it's a growing field and there's a lot of interest in it. And so yeah, I would like to have a postdoc with hopefully someone who would support me in this. You know, I will definitely look for fellowships and things like that, to maybe support this work. If I had to have a plan B, um, I don't. I would love to work for an NGO. I'm definitely more, you know, I gravitate more towards like nonprofit and sort of community-driven conservation, and working and interviewing people has really shown me like the people who live in places like this in rainforests, they really know, you know, the place best. And so I think conservation needs to work with these people, in order to meet its goals. So I would really like to work for an NGO. Doesn't have to be on invasive species issues, definitely just conservation of rainforests and talking to people. I find that we aren't great at talking to each other sometimes.
Yeah,
And, you know,
definitely.
and a pandemic makes that harder, especially in rural areas that maybe don't have access to the internet and things like that. So I definitely could see myself, you know, working for some kind of NGO, maybe based in the United States, but that works internationally, especially in the tropics.
Yeah, that work is so important. If you could give us one piece of advice for current SEED students, what would it be? Current or future SEED students?
Right. And so our SEEDS community is the majority of us are undergraduates and some of us are alumni, right? So we're graduates, so we're alumni. Cool. Just so I make sure,
Yeah.
so, you know. Um, yeah, I'd say my my biggest advice for the and what I think helped me get to where I am today is that I was really open-minded to trying different fields of research. Like I volunteered a lot in labs and stuff when I was an undergrad, and I think that's kind of like your first hurdle to kind of cross when you're, you know, brainstorming and thinking like, what do I want to do, you know, as a career. And you definitely have to put yourself out there. If you don't put yourself out there and you don't, you know, get noticed by labs or by, you know, by professors and things, you know, it, not that I'm going to say it won't happen for you, but it would definitely give you an edge if, you know, you go up to that professor, that ecology professor, and you say, oh, I read your lab website and I see you study birds. Like, what do you do with them? Why? How do you do that?
Okay.
That's how I got every single opportunity I ever had. I I walked up to my professor at the time and I said, "Hi, my name is Christine, and I like animals and plants, but I don't know what to do with that." Like,
And that's
and
very scary. So
yeah,
definitely, it's
it's very
something.
scary, but you'd be surprised how usually welcoming labs, at least in my experience, they were. And it was, I mean, just as an example, the lab that I first volunteered with is the lab that I am in right now. So I found a person and a professor. I was like, the stuff you work with sounds cool. How do I do that? And he said, do you want to fly to Peru? And I said, sure, let's make this happen. So I think that would be my biggest advice is you definitely need to put yourself out there more, even more so than knowing exactly what you want to do. I say, if you have an interest and a passion, you go for it. You'll find out what you don't like through that process. You know, there's no, you know, right or wrong answer for what you enjoy. And if you don't try, you won't know. So, like for example, I found out I didn't like electrofishing because I volunteered with a lab that did electrofishing, and I was like, you know, I don't think I like this. It was a lot of fun, and I said, great, thank you for the opportunity, but I think I'm gonna do something else. And that's when I discovered botany and plants, and I discovered I really enjoyed identifying plants and being outside with, you know, and being in the jungle. Like this habitat is the one I like to be in. So yeah, that's just an example of how I learned through putting myself out there, you know, what
That's
it is
such
I
a
wanted
great
to
piece
do.
of advice. I totally agree. Putting yourself out there, even if you're remotely interested in the subject, just going out and trying it for yourself, it's really useful. Well, thank you so much for all the knowledge, and it's so great to see you again, Christine. And for everyone, if you guys want to get in contact with Christine, I'll be adding her contact info at the bottom of the blog. So thank you.
No, thank you for having me. This was great.